Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to V with Mike G, the show of life, the show of Bacanora, Sonora, metal, and so much more. Today we are chatting with Roberto Contreras Jr. of Rancho Tepúa, the first Bacanora in the States, and we talk about the history of Bacanora. We talk about the history of Roberto as an exchange student, really cool piece there, and of course, some metal. I'm very thankful to have met Roberto thanks to Arak Torin, and he's helped me a lot in the Sotol production I've been working on here on the state side. Sharing information, that's what it's all about. And also this week, the Texas Mezcal and Tequila Society, an amazing Facebook group that I run with a few other notable people. Our pick of the new Rancho Tepúa Lechuguilla hits in Austin, hits in Houston, Dallas, and so on and so forth. So you should pick up a bottle, especially after hearing how it's made from this amazing gentleman. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed this great chat with Roberto Contreras Jr.
I was recently thinking about this, and I think I can manage to do the work that I'm doing till I'm probably at a good pace, probably till I get to 50 or early 50s. And what happened is that all my life I've worked with besides my dad. Mm-hmm. So I've seen my dad, because my dad used to work the same way that I'm working. And it was till he got to his mid 50s that he's had to slow down his role. And it's been actually very hard for him because he's not used to it. And the past 2 or 3 years, he's actually got like seriously injured because he's trying to do stuff that he's done his whole life, but his body and his reflexes and his weight is not the same. Wow. So for my dad, I'm just talking about the past 2 years. My dad's a cowboy, like really, really, he's a cowboy. Yeah. Like I wouldn't say I'm a cowboy because I lack some skills, some skill set. But he's like a real cowboy. And past, I guess, 2 years ago, for example, this is what's happened to him. 2 years ago, he was taming a horse. He's good at taming horses. Mm-hmm. And as soon as he jumped on the saddle, the horse started jumping and buckled him off. And he fell pretty hard. And that same horse got bitten by a snake. And he was trying to put like a kind of like a purple spray on him that disinfects and takes a little bit of the swelling off. And the horse got on his back feet, and I was watching from the kitchen. I was watching because I knew that the horse was like pretty savage horse. So I was looking from the ranch house from the kitchen, and I was seeing everything that happened. So I saw the horse get on his back feet, and he kind of went like with one of his foot. Struck my dad right on the face. Oh, wow. So the reflexes of my dad was to pull his head back. As soon as he saw the horse, he pulled back. And he got hit right in between the two eyebrows. Wow. Uh-huh. And as soon as I saw that, I went outside. My dad was covering his face. And as soon as he put his hands off, he was a bloody mess. Like, blood everywhere. And I told him we need to go to Bacanora to the hospital. And he said, no, I don't want to go. I'm going to be fine tomorrow. And I told him, you need to see your face in a mirror and you'll want to go to a hospital. And he told me, I don't want to see my face in the mirror because I'm probably going to faint. So I'm going to take your word and we'll go to Babiacora. And we went to Babiacora and he got a whole bunch of stitches. I remember exactly. So Babiacora is a small town, but it's very rural. So I was with it's a lady doctor, and she told me I had to grab like the light, put the light. She gave me a light, and I put the light on my dad's face, and she was doing the stitches. But first, she checked, like she stick her finger inside and kind of check for if my dad had a cracked skull because of the blow. And he didn't have a cracked skull, so he got the stitches done, and then actually she did a pretty good job because right now it kind of looks like a wrinkle. It doesn't even look like a blow anymore. So that happened to my dad 2 years ago, and then when we were talking about it, at the end of the horse he had to let it go. He had to. So in Sonora, they do a lot of dry meat. It's dry meat, and then they crush the dry meat, and it's called machaca. It's like shredded dry meat, and it's very popular as something that you can eat during breakfast or just mix with veggies and have as a food.
Yeah, so I actually had some.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was in Flagstaff. My friend Grant, they brought some up from Sonora.
Really?
It's so good, man. Horse meat. It was so good. And, you don't say those things in America, right? If my mom knew, she'd be so sad.
Well, you don't tell those things even in Sonora. You don't tell people, oh, that machaca is made with a horse or a donkey. Usually machaca that they sell you will be made out of beef. But there's a lot of people that will mix and there's some guys that kill a lot of cattle, they kill horses, they kill donkeys in Babiacora. So that's where that horse ended.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, it's an interesting, because the people in the States, we have our opinions about everything. We're like, this is wrong and this is right. And actually, I even see people telling you, not directly, but like, this is how you should do and should make the spirit. But anyway, the reason I talked about age, because this is good to kind of illustrate your dad as he's growing older. Seems maybe a little stubborn too, which, many dads are. But given that you got 20 years left and there's no rush if you're aiming for the mid 50s, but do you imagine having to have a family? Because I'm not sure if you have kids. I don't think you have kids, do you?
No, not yet. But it's
part of it, right?
There.
Yeah. Because do you feel obligated to pass this torch down?
Oh yeah, it has. At the end, like my dream is for this to continue. If it's been in my family for 100+ years, hopefully it's gonna be very hard, but I hope that it stays for another 100 years for the Contreras as something that we've always done and loved, like the ranch. But it's not easy. I'm gonna tell you this as an example because they talk about an agave crisis. They talk about now, I guess, water is becoming a little bit more of a concern, and it's probably gonna be something that we're gonna think a lot more about water and being more efficient with water. But just people and working in a ranch or on a farm, and that the thing about continuing in the same family, it's not happening right now. It's not happening right now, and it's gonna every time it's gonna be less and less. And I'm just gonna tell you about my experience and what I see at the ranch and what I see at my region where we're familiar with the families, with the ranches and stuff. For example, where we're at, it used to be 10 families, the ones that use the road that we used to get to the ranch. 10 different ranches. Round 9, from those 10 families, we're only 3 families left. The other 7 families or ranches are already been sold. or already being rented out. They're rented, and it's gonna be some time, and then they're gonna be sold. So it's, and those families had sons, many sons, but it's just not something that young people, or even, I'm 35, I'm not that young anymore, but not even like people from my generation want to do anymore. And I actually understand, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it's not very flashy work, and it's time consuming, and money sometimes becomes it's hard to maintain a ranch and cattle, and it's a tough job. It's very tough. I guess we've been fortunate, because part of the reason we can do what we do and still do it is because, for me and my dad, we share something, and it's the love for our family and the ranch. That's what keeps us in the baddest or in the worst, where we'll be at the ranch, and we'll be doing what we do. But it is hard. It definitely is hard. It's a challenge.
It is. I mean, I credit you for a lot of what I've learned about this recent batch of sepul that I made in terms of harvesting and shredding, like all of it, and I was trying to find help. Yeah, I think you commented on this, I was trying to find help around here, and it's really difficult to find people that simply want to do manual labor.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm with you. Now, it's not something I can share with my dad necessarily, but it's something for me that it feels like a calling. Like, this is the thing that I was meant to do. And so I'll do whatever I can to make sure it happens. Then for you, this is your legacy. This is tradition, right?
Yeah, it is something bigger. And honestly, that's what keeps me, because I got asked once, why are you doing what you do, like your job? Why do you do that? And honestly, it all comes to, since I was a young age, I never saw myself doing anything else than being at the ranch, working at the ranch. And thankfully, what has helped us out is that we are a diversified ranch. It's not only cattle, it's Bacanora, and we do a little bit of outfitting. We sell hunts, we sell goose deer hunts, whitetail. So those three things are the combination of those three things. It's what has kept us afloat. Like, it wouldn't work. The ranch wouldn't work if it was only cattle. It wouldn't work if it's only Bacanora. It only work if it was only outfitting. The combination of those three things is what keeps us afloat, and the fact that we actually enjoy the cattle ranching part. We enjoy Bacanora production, and we enjoy the other. Even if money's tight or anything, that's what we like and love to do.
It's admirable to me. One of the things, because what I've learned about you is, so you're born in Sonora, right? But
I was born in Hermosillo.
But then you studied in Florida, right? Like, so you actually went to school in the States. How did that come about? Yeah,
so I guess the 3 first years of my dad as a married man, they lived in Aconchi, which is our ranch is in the town of Aconchi. So the 3 first years of their marriage, they live in Aconchi. But then they decided to move to Hermosillo because they wanted to give me and my brothers a better education. So they moved the family to Hermosillo when my oldest sister was only 1 year old. I wasn't even born. So then I was born the next year in Hermosillo. And my parents, honestly, they don't come from money or stuff, but they always been hard workers. So my dad and mom decided to just they put us on the best schools in Hermosillo available at the moment. And it was actually a bilingual school. And so we did, I think it was 3 hours in the morning were only English classes, and then it was lunch, or I don't know, something like that. And the 3 hours in the afternoon were Spanish classes. So we got, by the time I got out of that school, I was pretty good in reading and writing in English, but my conversation skills were not very good. Like I needed to think a lot before I opened my mouth. So then my parents decided to send my sister first as a foreign exchange student.
Wow.
And Natalia came speaking. She was in Oregon, and I think its name is Klamath Falls, Oregon.
Okay.
And she was with a Mormon family.
Oh, wow.
So she came back like speaking like perfect English. And as soon as my parents saw that, then it was like a really good thing. They decided to send me as a foreign exchange student. But it's not like I can choose where I want to go.
Right,
the families that are in the program will choose you. And it was Jacksonville, Florida, where I went. And I was just done with junior high. So it was my first year of high school. I was 16 years old. And it was a very, very good experience. Like, I really enjoyed being in Jacksonville for that year.
Wow. So it was just the 1 year that you spent?
Yeah, it was only 1 year. But what helped me a lot, because I remember my host dad telling me, well, you already speak English. Well, and I actually did speak English, but I thought it was not very good. And what actually didn't help me a lot is I've always been very shy, so I'm very quiet, and not very confident. So that year actually gave me confidence. That year actually made me grow as a person.
Yeah, that's incredible. We use the phrase culture shock, because you're in Hermosillo and then you come over to Florida. We got loud music. I mean, I'm not saying Mexico doesn't have this stuff, but we have different kinds of things, and it's just different being American. Did you take to that? Did you enjoy kind of the American vibe?
Well, if you think about it, Hermosillo is only 3 hours away from the border, from Nogales, which is Hermosillo. If you come to Hermosillo, it's very Americanized right now. It's almost like so. A lot of the influence was the U.S. influence is already and has been already in Hermosillo. It's still very different. Like if you want to see like authentic Sonoran and traditions, and you need to get out of Hermosillo and go to the small towns, and you get that. But being and growing in Hermosillo made me like I knew about the customs and traditions of the states already. But it was a culture shock being a foreign exchange student, because I went to a public high school. It was a big high school, and at first I thought, well, like my expectations was that people were going to try to talk to me, and I was going to make friends right away. But no, I probably like 1 week I was walking by myself during lunch, and no one was talking to me, and everyone had their friends and stuff, and I was like all by myself. And so, and that was the hardest part, I think. And there was a big Hispanic population. Like there were Dominican, Puerto Ricans, Cubans. I even met someone from Sonora, like a guy from Sonora at that high school from Nacosari. So, and it was easy. It's easy to. I remember everyone being like, everyone was proud of their heritage, very proud of their heritage in the States. So everyone was wearing jerseys, I don't know, Puerto Rico jersey or Dominican Republic baseball jersey. And I remember I had like a Mexico jersey. And I used to wear it and go to Jacksonville, to go to high school on it. And so then people saw me and they were, oh, you're from Mexico. I'm from Mexico and stuff like that. So it was easy to to get to meet Mexican people and get to meet Hispanic people. So my first like what I did for not being alone is go and talk to Hispanic kids and make friendship with Hispanic kids. And but then part of me was saying, well, I'm here to speak English, not to continue speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
Because most of this, what was strange for me, some of the Hispanic kids were not very fluent in English. Like they were going to high school and stuff, but they were speaking Spanish all the time. And I think they had like special classes for them. Something like that.
I think we call it ESL. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
But I didn't go to those classes. I went just to regular classes.
I mean, you embraced the opportunity to be among English-speaking Americans, and you really wanted that to be a valuable experience.
Yeah, I knew if I continued with those friendships I had, I wasn't going to learn nothing.
Yeah.
But it's not like it was something like I'm going to start talking to these guys and then I'm going to go and talk to those guys because no, it wasn't like that. There's actually weightlifting classes so I started lifting weights as a class, but I started getting bigger and bigger and bulkier and strength wise, my strength started going up.
Yeah.
So one of the coaches told me, Roberto, have you thought about wrestling? And I said, well, I've never wrestled before. And he told me, you should give it a try. And I said, well, I might, because I actually wanted to do something in the afternoons. And I was thinking about playing soccer, but I said, well, I'm not sure about soccer. I actually want to do something different. I used to play basketball during junior high.
Really?
But I was too short. I'm a short guy, so I'm only 5'5". So and I saw those guys playing basketball, and they were dunking the ball. So I said, no, there's no way I'm gonna go in there. So I tried for wrestling, and I did pretty good fast.
Yeah.
We used to train a lot. It was after school, we used to train for 3 hours every day. So from me not knowing nothing about wrestling, and I started doing pretty good, kind of fast. I actually made the varsity team, and I remember because I told one of my best friends at that moment was from Venezuela, and I told him, "Hey, do you want to try for wrestling?" He said, "Yeah, let's go." So we both went in, and I remember at first we were 40 plus guys trying to get on those spots.
Wow.
And I guess my friend quit it like 2 months in, and I stayed. And by the end of the wrestling season, we were not even the whole weight classes. Like we were just a few guys left. It was very hard work. It was very strenuous training.
What's kind of interesting about that is that kind of training and that kind of endurance is something that you're going to have to do the agave and to do the palm. You know what I mean? Like it makes you realize like how hard that work is physically, but you have to stay in shape. You know, do you still say like, what do you, not that it's not enough work, because you said you're working pretty much half the year, but do you lift weights and stuff still just to make sure that your body is better equipped?
Oh yeah. When I got back to Hermosillo and from my exchange year, I continued going to weightlift, like to a gym. Actually tried wrestling in Hermosillo, but it wasn't the same. I didn't really like it. So I just kept going to the gym. And for example, our childhood, I had a very nice childhood, mostly because of the ranch. And my parents were not very overprotective from us. Like we used to go to the ranch, me and my brother and sisters, and we used to put old clothes and just go and explore. And we'll come back all clothes tear up, all full of dirt and stuff. So we just used to go and come back in the afternoon and just walk and explore and stuff. So when I got to a certain age, it was, I remember, for example, if you tell me my first memory of being at Vinata at the ranch was probably early 90s. And at that time it was still banned in Sonora. So the Vinata at the ranch was hidden. And I remember going over there with my dad, and he had two ranch help. Those guys were distilling, and I remember those guys we had to change the hot water into cold water, and they let Eduardo, my youngest brother, and me will do that, and then put firewood for the pot still and stuff like that. So those were my first experience. But then as I got a little bit bigger, age-wise, like the same branch help and my dad would let us help in small things, but we'll still be with them and help out. So you start catching on stuff, and that's why I started liking the being at the distillery, being by the ranch help, like that. That's where because a lot of people would ask me at school, because every weekend most of my junior high kids will go out and get together and stuff, and my weekends I'll go to the ranch, and they ask me, why are you doing that? Why do you go to the ranch every weekend? Why do you go to the ranch all vacations? What do you do at the ranch? And I'll just go and help out. Like that's where.
Man, that's so cool. And and so I want to talk about the history of Bacanora here real quick, but I'm so glad that we met first. I really want to say that it's been great getting to know you and consulting in you and asking you questions about production and all of this. And it was just perfect that we were able to, for this Facebook group, the Texas Mezcal Tequila Society, that we were able to work with you and pick a batch, And Arik made that happen. He's such a wonderful person, and he spoke so highly of you. But the thing was that it occurred to me, because we tasted some palmillas, aka sotoles, and then these two lechuguillas, which are basically mezcales, let's just call it that. But I know you had this history of working with Agave Pacifica, we know as Angustifolia, pretty much everywhere else. Had you had a history, had the ranch ever worked with lechuguilla? Because to me, it was something so new and it was something so exciting. That was the reason, and it tasted great. But that's why I wanted people in America to experience something completely new. Because had you done that before, worked with that agave, straight back?
10 plus years ago, I remember helped to do a batch, but it was not only lechuguilla, but it was an ensemble of half lechuguilla, half agave pacifica. And I remember we did the whole thing, and by the time we distilled and we blended and mixed and stuff, and we did all that and we tried it, we were not very happy with the final results. Honestly, we tried it and we didn't like it. So it never crossed our minds to make, we said, logic was, if we made half lechuguilla, how the whole lechuguilla is going to be good? Like, what's the point? So we never even tried that again. I guess last year, during pandemic, that we were thinking about, it was only my dad and me working at the ranch. We were doing small batches, because most of the work was done between both of us. We thought, we might as well do Palmilla. And when we finished with the first Palmilla batch and when we sampled, we were honestly very surprised with the final result. We were actually not expecting like first batch is gonna taste this good. We're not expecting that. So we were very surprised, and we thought, well, we might as well do just a Lechuguilla one to see what comes out. And so we started harvesting, and we talked to one of our neighbors who has a ranch. It's higher in elevation from our ranch, but he's got a lot more Lechuguilla than us. So this guy was telling, I'm gonna harvest Lechuguilla for you guys, but do give me some final product, give me some glass jars and like 4 little glass jars, and I'll be happy with that. Nice. So he brought the Lechuguilla to us, and then we harvest around the ranch for mature Lechuguilla, and we started the process. And it was what we put in the oven was half Agave Pacifica and half Lechuguilla. But what we put in everything was separated. Like as soon as we took it off the oven, we put one thing on one thing was shredded, separated of the other. One thing was put in the containers for fermentation, separated of the other, and the same with distillation. And then that we finished distilling, and then that we had sample, we were like, this is like not like remotely close to what we distilled before. And we were surprised at what at the final product, actually. Yeah.
Well, you know what I love is that I see your batch, you know what I mean? Like, this is the thing about art. You know, you gave me the time to listen to the record I made, right? But it's like this thing I can kind of give you, and you can interpret it however you want, right? And so spirits are the same way. So I know you haven't been copied on a lot of stuff because some of this conversations in like other groups and things, but they love this batch. You know what I mean? Like in the kind of notes and stuff that I'm seeing them talk about, it's just fascinating to me. I feel so much gratitude that we got to work together so that people through Texas get to taste this thing, have their minds blown, you know? How does that make you feel that like you made this thing and you got people all over the place saying, this is pretty fucking good?
No, it's for me, honestly, to see bottles in Texas, for me to see bottles in New York, bottles in California, it's to this day it's something that really makes like the hard work, all the path, everything. It makes it worthwhile. Like it makes me very proud of what we accomplish. It's pretty good, and honestly, for example, I wanted to tell you this. In here in Sonora, and I don't know if it's the same in Oaxaca or Guerrero or other states with mezcal. People are in here in Sonora, when it comes to Bacanora production, people are they don't give you tips. Like they don't like, if you ask them, how do you do this and how do you do that? And they won't tell you nothing, really? Nothing. Yeah. But my dad has never been like that. My dad has always been open, but like people will go to him and how do you do this? How do you do this? And he'll be like very open. And then there was a point that it was like, Dad, like, don't be like that. Don't. And I used to tell him that. Right now, I actually see things like he does, and it's not that important for me anymore. Yeah. At the end, I can print out a blueprint of how we do things at Rancho Tepúa, but there's stuff like that the ranch gives us that even if someone would copy our style and do things exactly the same, there's stuff the ranch gives us that is very different from the conditions where they're going to try to mimic what we do. So there's no point. I think it's good to share information, especially if you're trying to produce, or someone's like puts his heart onto something and wants to produce something that's good, to give him a tip it's a good sign. Like I don't follow those guys that are very like, I don't want to give tips. I don't want to.
Because it's not a competition, really. I've sensed that with certain players in Oaxaca that it's kind of a competition. But when it comes down to it, if you help me and I can help you, we're both better for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the exchange of knowledge is incredibly crucial. You can't just hide stuff, and it's not really like that in the States. Actually, when you talk about whiskey production, pretty much is, you know, we overshare. Yeah, we overshare in the States. You know, so it comes as no surprise that if you want to learn how to make whiskey, what kind of yeast, they'll tell you everything. And to your point, if I give you a guitar and I hold the same guitar and I say you play a G chord, I'll play a G chord. It's the same chord, but it won't sound the same. There's no way. It's impossible, you know? So I'm again, so grateful that you are that transparent. And why do you think that mindset exists? And I wouldn't say it's only in Mexico by any means, but why is that kind of sense of closed offness? Why do you think that is in Bacanora production?
Well, and it's not only Bacanora, it's the same with
Wisconsin, but yeah.
For example, being a rancher, it's the same. For example, neighbors and relationship with our ranch neighbors. I remember my dad telling me that my grandpa was on fights with all of his neighbors, north, south, east, west neighbors. He'll be on big fights with them, and fights like that will escalate to almost, or sometimes even fighting, punching and stuff. So when he got the ranch, he tried to make amends and talk to his neighbors and tell them, listen, I'm here. I don't want any problems. I want to have a good relationship with you guys. And most of them agreed. But it's something that's still going on till now. And I don't know, it's crazy. Like it's crazy. It's like we call it la ley del monte. Like it's eye for an eye kind of stuff. Like you do something wrong to me and then you have to react the same way. But now that I'm with my dad, I'm trying to be more intelligent about it. And like they expect a reaction, but they do something bad to us. Our neighbors expect a reaction, an aggressive reaction or a bad reaction from us. But now that there's no reaction, they actually stay more uneasy about it. Like they don't know what's going on. They don't know if we did something. It's kind of like that. But I guess it's a culture thing, like not sharing, like jealousy kind of stuff. And I think so. It's something that we have in our inner selves that I guess that me being a rancher and being around ranchers, I get to see it more exposed. But I guess people are just like that.
That's just interesting to me. Well, so the thing is, you know, you were saying when you first started working on things, but putting firewood in the stills or changing out the water for the condenser or whatnot, that Bacanora still wasn't legal. So I know a little bit about the history, but for folks that may be listening, Bacanora has been made in Sonora for a long time, right?
Yeah, more than 300 years.
And what was the falling out? Like, why did it become illegal?
Actually, in the early 1900s, that's when Bacanora was getting its more growth, more everything. It was like a very big industry. There's like treasury information from the state of Sonora that the most taxes that were coming to the state were from the Bacanora industry.
Wow.
But then in 1915, the then governor of the state of Sonora made the ban or made it illegal. But that prohibition was for all alcoholic beverages. But it didn't last. How can you make a prohibition on alcohol?
We tried it, and it didn't work for us either.
It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So the result was clandestine activity, and that's everyone that was producing went into the mountains and set their distilleries near, like between ravines and near close to water. And that's how they continue that tradition. So this ban lasted till 1919, but it was only kept for Bacanora.
Oh, so even after that 4 years, other alcohol was allowed to be produced, but not Bacanora.
Not Bacanora, and that prohibition lasted till 1992.
Holy crap!
Yeah, so it was 77 years. And actually, I think about it, what would have become of the Bacanora industry if things would have continued the way there was? Because there was like between 60 to 70 like factories, Bacanora factories. And I've seen some pictures, and there, you can count in one of those pictures 40 people working only in one factory of Bacanora.
Wow.
And there were a whole bunch of them all around the state.
What was ultimately the prejudice against Bacanora? Why that spirit?
But I've read about it, and I think Sonora is the second biggest state in Mexico. And in that time, it was post-revolution era. And this governor, there was a sense of in Sonora that there was no authority in the state. So this governor thought that by making alcohol illegal, it was going to be a way to tell the people there is an authority all around the state. And then he made a police that would go into the small towns looking for Bacanora producers. And that's where the stories that have been told about people getting hanged because they were Bacanora producers or Bacanora sellers, or they were involved in that kind of business.
Wow. So it's kind of a way to demonstrate control over the people. Wow.
Uh-huh.
Is there was it because, the same thing happened with Sotoleros? Like Chihuahua has a very similar clandestino kind of, that's what we did in the States too, right? Hillbillies are kind of going up making moonshine and stuff. But it's weird. Was it kind of like, how mezcal for a long time, and that's changed, but it was considered a peasant's drink. You know what I mean? It wasn't of the rich class like cognac and brandy. Was that kind of the perception of Bacanora too?
Yeah, it has been the same. Like the ranchers or farmers' spirit. And if you think about it, I actually get it like pretty good. Like working on field, working labor, it is hard work. And honestly, having a sip of Bacanora or mezcal is something that will make you feel better immediately.
Yeah.
So it is, and not only that, but it was something that these guys can actually go and make themselves. So if you go, for example, in Babiácora or Conchi, people would rather prefer mezcal, Bacanora, than beer or like there's but if you go to Hermosillo, the capital, and you tell someone my age, do you want a sip of Bacanora? They'll be like, not really.
Oh, wow.
So it's
when Rancho Tepúa finally came to the States, was that because the brand, it looks incredible, right? The design, it's like modern. It was, to my knowledge, at least the first really well-received Bacanora. But was that your project or was that your father's? Because I think I read that there was Cielo or something like that. There might have been another mark that he had in the States. But where did you kind of come into play with the launching of Tepúa?
Yeah, when I went to college in Hermosillo, and I went to finance I started finance. So when I was studying finance, I was working mid-time with a company that what they did was investment projects, but they help out, for example, rural communities that didn't know how to form a company.
Mm-hmm.
They'll share their knowledge, and they'll build the company, but also they'll make an investment plan that they can present to government and maybe get funding for that project. That's what we were doing. That's what I was doing in the afternoons. So I got working there, and my dad told me, why don't we do something? But at that time, there was no Destiladores de Tepúa as a company.
Mm-hmm.
So he told me, why don't, and I talked to my boss, and she told me, let's do it. And so I started working on the first making the company, Destiladores de Tepúa, and also making an investment project for Destiladores de Tepúa. And that's how the company, but I guess 1 year before I started working there, we already had the bottle. We already went to with a graphic designer and met the first label. Mm-hmm. And I guess this was early or mid 2000s. We already had a bottle and label and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I went ahead and registered the brand, and then I went and worked with Viridiana, that was my boss, and we made the company, and that's how it started to flow. So I finished college in 2009, and I went straight to working with Destiladores de Tepúa and at the branch. And so I said, a thought of mine was, where can I sell more Bacanora? And I always thought about, Arizona is where we share a border with Arizona. I might as well try to find someone that's interested in our Bacanora. And I looked for importers of mezcal in Arizona, and I found someone. So I sent him a message, and I told him what we were doing, and he replied back and sent me his phone number. I called him, and then we started talking, and we set a meeting in border town, and we sat down together, and from then we set a meeting at the ranch, and we were working at that time, making a few batches. And he got to see the whole process, and he got to taste right there from the steel and stuff. And he was blown away. Yeah. But he told me, one of the things he told me, Rancho Tepúa, I don't think it's very commercial name for a brand for the States. This was 2009, 2010. And why don't you guys think about a new name? So we make probably a list of 60 names. Some of them were song names, regional Mexican music song names, and some were name of places around the ranch. And we were a huge list. But I guess the first one was Cielo Rojo, because there's a song named Cielo Rojo. And as soon as Charles saw that name, he said, this is going to be it. He didn't even want to see the other ones. This is it. And so we proceeded to register the brand in Mexico, Cielo Rojo. It was available, so we made the registration. And I guess in 2011, we made the first Bacanora from the ranch export as Cielo Rojo to the U.S. Wow. And I guess we were the first ones to actually do an export. And I think we got into the U.S. market, I guess, when a lot of mezcal brands were new mezcal brands, really good mezcal brands, were getting into the States as well. Mm-hmm. And I'd say good mezcal brands, because now those brands are huge, yeah. Right. But Charles was, I guess the Cielo Rojo project lasted till 2015. And Charles was a man of certain age. He was getting old, and he started having health problems. So we saw our sales from every year going up. Then they kind of went like this, and then they went last year we worked together. They started going down. Oh wow! And so we had some meetings with him to see what was going on, and then he told me, "You know what, Roberto, I'm ill, and I can't continue working on this project with you guys." And that's when we parted ways with Cielo Rojo, and that's where the project ended. The good thing about Cielo Rojo is that it actually put our name, like Contreras, Rancho Tepúa, because I think on the label it was said that it was made in Rancho Tepúa. Would put the Contreras and it put Bacanora on the map because a lot of people didn't knew about Bacanora. So for me, it was a lot easier than to contact someone in the States and get someone interested in our Bacanora. And at that point, I had been I had been sending my Bacanora to Guadalajara to Esteban Morales Garibi from La Venenosa. Like I used to sell him my Bacanora. He used to make a little bit of distribution in Guadalajara and sell here, sell there and stuff. So I talked to Esteban and told him, I told him what happened and I told him that I was interested in talking to Eric if he could do like an introduction for me. And he actually did. And that's how I got started talking to Eric. But before Eric, I had like 3 or 4 people like very interested in importing what we were in our Bacanora. But I got to talk to Eric, and then what I like about Eric, honestly, was his knowledge on agave spirits in general, but also about the business. So I talked to my dad, I think this is the way we have to go. I think,
he's just such a good dude. And it's weird how much he knows, because some people, they let you know that they know a lot, right? It's like, you need to know that I'm smarter than you. Eric's not like that. He knows everything, but he'll never tell you unless you just ask, right? Like, some of the stuff, and I love that about him. He's so humble, Well, so one of the questions I have for you is when Cielo Rojo, right? That was the first one.
Cielo Rojo.
Yeah, Cielo Rojo. That it was 80 proof, if I recall. It
was lower proof, yes.
But this Vinatero series, which has both some Palmilla, which is Sotol, and then the Lechuguilla, of course, which we've got this great batch for Texas. Do you feel like you have a pretty clear vision for how you want it to taste? Like the proof? Because the 2 batches I sampled are different proofs. So when is it right for you? What does that taste like, or what does that feel like?
Well, at the end, it all comes out to the moment that we make the final blend and adjust the ABV, and sometimes we like it at different proof. But the reason we went higher with Rancho Tepúa compared to Cielo Rojo is that we wanted people to experience not like a lower ABV proof product, because that's not what we actually drink at the ranch. I wanted people to drink something like or similar to what we are drinking at the ranch, or what you would usually get if you go to the Sonora mountain range and someone gives you a sip of Bacanora. They're not gonna give you something that's lower, I guess, than 48. So that's the reason we went higher on the ABV for Rancho Tepúa, and for Reserva del Vinatero. It was also that, like it's got to be 48 or a little bit lower or a little bit higher, and it's all going to depend on the time we blend, and then we taste, and then we'll think, well, this is what we like the most.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the best way to do it, that every moment or every batch tastes different. It can taste somewhat similar, but it's different, and you have to feel it different each time, Oh
yeah. For example, it's what's amazing to me, and it's very strange to me, is how we can blend. Like we finish a batch, and then we blend, and then we taste, and then we put all that batch on 20-liter glass jugs, and we put it on a storage and leave it there for a few months. But what's amazing to me is how after a month we'll go and taste, and it's very different from like a month ago. And if you tried it a month later, it's gonna, like, what's amazing to me is how an agave spirit keeps evolving from the original result you get as soon as you distill that batch. That's crazy to me how it continues to change.
Yeah, it's something we keep exploring scientifically to try to understand that. And I've got some theories that have, some of which I'll be able to prove, but with whiskey it doesn't really do that. You know, a lot of the distillers say that, you know, after so many years, it's actually done changing for the most part. But I got a couple questions left for you. I've seen a surge in mezcal brands, a surge in sotol brands, a surge in Bacanora brands, but given that, you know, you'd mentioned how many of the sons particularly are going away, the ranches are being rented and sold. Do you think that the growth of Bacanora as a category is going to be a healthy thing, or is it going to be a money thing?
Well, I've seen for example, our job was to put Bacanora in the States. We put Bacanora on the map with Cielo Rojo, with Rancho Tepúa. After we were in the States, there were people that saw Bacanora, and then they started coming to Sonora and starting to think of building a brand and stuff with Sonoran producers. But I think the past 2 years, I've seen like new brands of Bacanora coming out like crazy. And I don't see competition as a bad thing. Where a new category is actually a good thing. What's bad is that some of these brands are coming into the Bacanora business and not planting an agave, or not starting that way. It's cool that they get a bottle and a brand and stuff, but the problem is that these guys are going to the agave sources that are available. They're putting more pressure into the agave that's available right now in Sonora. So I don't, if more Bacanora brands are going to come, and I understand that, but it'll be good to see if these Bacanora brands also start planting agave. Now, the problem in Sonora is that in the Sonora mountain range is there's big tradition in Bacanora production, and there's a lot of proud about being a Bacanora producer, mezcal producer in the Sonora mountain range. But there's no agave culture. People in the Sonora mountain range don't plant agave. They don't know how to, they don't know even where to start.
Wow.
So that has, and the problem is that most of the small traditional producers are from the mountain range. So if this continues, it's gonna go to a point where there won't be agave in the Sonora Sierra if people don't start planting agave right away. What's happening right now also in Sonora is that they're starting to plant agave outside of the Bacanora denomination of origin. And it's money people, like it's people with resources. And now these guys are pushing for the denomination of origin of Bacanora to expand. So there's been like as Bacanora producers, there's a separation in between a group of the traditional Bacanora producers and the new group of money people that want to make the deal bigger than what it is right now. So that's what's going on right now with Bacanora.
Yeah, same thing with mezcal too, right? Just where are they trying to bring it? Like Aguas Calientes, I think it was one, and then Ciudad de México. Money, man, money, right?
Yeah, and for example, because we talk about it a lot between, we have a group of producers like us, guys that have been doing this for a long time, that we'll get together and talk about what's going on and stuff. And I guess agave availability in Sonora is a problem. If these guys start planting agave outside of the denomination of origin, that will end the problem of agave availability in Sonora. But we have a problem is that Hermosillo Obregón, Guaymas, Navojoa, the bigger cities don't have tradition in Bacanora production. They like, if you ask me, is there a Bacanora producer in Guaymas? There's not one right now. There hasn't been one probably in a long time. Like, but these guys are like really digging into what has like a story, and I think they found that I don't know how many years ago there was someone producing in Guaymas, and now they're trying to go. They're looking for ways to like. They're looking for ways to. They probably are going to get it done.
Right. It's a way, it's weird because in a way it's misappropriation, but you try to, because the same thing happened in Texas with Sotol. If you just find one loose connection to production somewhere down the line, whether it's 100 years ago, 200 years ago, then that somehow justifies what's going on. I think that's it's a crazy, people will do anything to make money, and they'll paint any story that they want. And I'm not glad to hear it's going on there, but I'm glad to hear it's not just a problem in the States.
Yeah, for example, for us at first, we were kind of like very against it, But we're not against them planting agave. If they want to plant agave, let them plant agave. And I think if they want to expand the deal for agave only, that'll be fine. And have these guys come to the small towns and produce Bacanora, because that will create jobs, that will bring money into those small towns. Now we're talking about Sonora and Sierra Mountain Range. It's so small towns, so farming, cattle ranching. There's not a lot of work. There's young guys going out of town, so it will be a way of injecting life to those small towns.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it ends up. Because honestly, I don't think these guys that are pushing for it will stay fine if it's only agave. Like, they're probably not going to go for the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Well, I've got one question left for you, and we're going to take a little departure and talk about music here for a second. But I'm so glad how much I learned. Like, you taught me so much about Bacanora, the geography of Sonora, the lifestyle and stuff. And I hope that people listening find it as valuable to me too, because the batch drops this week. People got it in their hands, and I'm like, it's going to be real good. Listen to the story of Bacanora, and you helped create this market, and it's going to keep growing, and we're going to keep trying to talk about it. But all right, so this is my last question for you, because you like metal. This is a good thing. If you could drink this Lechuguilla that we have here in Texas, you could drink that with any metal musician anywhere in the world. Who would you love to sit down and have a drink of this Lechuguilla with?
I'm probably James Maynard Keenan of Tool or A Perfect Circle, or Chino Moreno of Deftones.
Chino, oh man.
Yeah, I'm a closet heavy metal fan. Like, I wear cowboy boots and hat and stuff, but a lot of people don't know that I listen to heavy metal.
No, I love that, man. And Chino, I met him a couple times, and
really,
yeah, I remember. And people don't care, but I'm going to say this anyway. One of the first shows I went to in Salt Lake City was the Warped Tour. I think this was '96, and so this guy, short hair, he's just sitting outside, hanging out, and I'm like, You singing Deftones? And he's like, yeah, Chino. And I'm like, hey. And it was like the day after he cut his dreads off. Do you remember that back in the olden days where he had the dreads? And he was so cool. And it was just, I loved that band ever since then. Because I liked them, but then him being so cool and just like so just open and nice. And like he wanted to be out there signing autographs for people,
Yeah, that's crazy that you got to meet him.
Super cool. Well, when things get back to whatever normal might be. If it ever so happens that the Deftones are playing in your neck of the woods or my neck of the woods, we got to go see them.
That'll be like a dream come true, honestly.
Yeah.
And for me, that'll be like probably highlight of my life. I got to see Deftones live or something like that.
Yeah. Well, so we're going to end the conversation here. I'm just going to stop recording, but you and I will keep chatting. But we will make this Deftones thing happen. And it's been just a pleasure getting to chat and to get to know you so much. So I can't wait to hear more about what people think about this batch, and I'll make sure to relay all that to you. So thank you so much for your hard work.
No, thank you for your support. Honestly, it's a pleasure. I know who's come and talk in your show, and it's a pleasure to be here sitting with you. Honestly,
yeah, likewise. It means everything. So I'll talk to you soon.
Well, there we have it. Roberto Contreras Jr. from Rancho Tepúa. Incredible story, honestly. And he was telling me when he's out there working at the Vinatero, he's got earphones in, and he's listening to metal and stuff. And the guys around him are like, "What are you listening to?" He's like, "Oh, banda." And you gotta like hide this duality of loving metal music and just music in general. I found that kind of cute. I'll just put it that way. Roberto, it's been great getting to know you over the past couple months, and I think the products you're making are just fabulous, and Texas will continue to love them. And thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how weird it is to watch Bar Rescue in weird pandemic kind of time, or if you're thinking, I cannot wait to go see Shad up at Las Almas Rotas this evening, a bit of vacation after a lot of hard work, please keep dancing.